Thank you very much for joining us, Lavan.
Greetings, Colin. Greetings to all of your viewers.
Are we seeing South Africa being dumped with the primary listing of this company in Australia, and we're seeing the secondary listing at the JSE and then the standard listing in London? Tell us about how that should be interpreted.
So I've written about this. There are a number of corporates that have already dumped South Africa. And on this Africa Day, it's important to note what changes have happened. In these past few years, we've noticed that a number of South African companies, Anglo PLC, Old Mutual, South African breweries, for example, have all gone ahead and looked at listings in the United Kingdom. Many of our mining companies who are now ripe for listings look at Canada or other centres. What we've also noticed in recent years, companies like Goldfields, for example, have gone out and separately listed the South African assets as Sibanye Gold. Billiton, which of course has got South African roots, coming through to an acquisition phase in the 1990s and building up to this giant BHP Billiton, have decided to carve out the South African assets and separately listed. So I've written that this, I believe, to be contrary to the African spirit. I think that it's Afro-pessimism at its most blatant level. Of course, there has been a build-up to the reasoning behind this. Many corporates suffer with problems regarding Eskom. What we've also noticed is corporate South Africa has a challenge with regards to xenophobia, and that disrupts work, that disrupts safety and security. Internationals view this with some concern. Notably, the corruption that we've observed on the continent, and in particular South Africa recently, has been another factor that has contributed to companies deciding to maybe cut off some of their South African connections. And you'll notice that De Beers is another one of those, now looking to sell off its Kimberley assets. De Beers, of course, has a history going back almost 125 years with Kimberley. You'll find a number of their assets now sit outside of South Africa.
So just very briefly, what message does this send to the South African mining industry? Is this a motion of no confidence in terms of economic policy and investor confidence, as well as labor instability in the country?
So it's a message that the mining industry have interpreted themselves. They've voted with their feet. They've decided that South Africa is far too a jaded location for them, and they've decided to look elsewhere. Many of the local operators have looked to Asia, Australasia, they've looked to South America. You've seen massive investments by Anglos, for example, in Latin America. Notwithstanding the spirit of expansion, which is lauded and which is something that shareholders want, it's the fact that the investment doesn't always flow to South Africa. And I believe that we have a duty, not only as South African businessmen, but I invite government to look into this, to see that we can do all that we can to make it an investment-friendly destination. So on this Africa Day, maybe we can take more seriously these themes that we've observed. The fact that land tenure is something that has been mentioned both in SONA as well as in budget. The fact that there is going to be a disruption in terms of foreign ownership, that also is of concern to international investors. We have a duty to make sure that we make this an investor-friendly South Africa, and that we try and do everything to ensure that your investment in South Africa is going to be maintained and you're able to take your wealth out, if you so wish, at a profitable moment. But the message that now corporates receive is one of a very dangerous place, a place with no electricity, and a place where they're not sure if their property ownership is safe and secure.
Well, Lavan, just very briefly, because I've run out of time, what gap is this demerging going to open in South Africa? Well, we understand the demerits, but in terms of job creation, in terms of labor stability in the country, as well as going forward to increase the job numbers, is it going to affect the economy negatively at the moment?
So, Colin, from a Labour point of view, it's vital that international investment happens in South Africa. Let us admit that the mining, the beginning of mining, be it gold and diamonds in South Africa, has been with foreign wealth. It was that capital injection from international investors that got us going, that maintained us. And if investors are looking elsewhere and not on home ground, then we have a sorry state of affairs in terms of employment within these sectors. What you will find is any new investment that corporates would have made by building new plants, by investing in new mining operations, are now being thwarted. And I wonder if the very people that are being affected may be the cause, because contributed to some of the problems I've labeled is the problems we've faced with unions. That has been a very big issue and something that has caught the attention of mining operators. So it is very much a fused problem. And as we try and unravel a solution, I would suggest that we try and be as investor friendly as possible, because what other problems we have, we'll have to deal with on our own. Inviting foreigners to invest with us is probably our biggest concern now.
All right. Thank you very much for your insightful analysis on the demerger of South 32, which of course follows the decision by BHP Billiton's recent decision to list South 32 as one of the biggest operating mining company in South Africa.